Okay, I'm working on this 2010 Honda Accent here today, and we've determined that the AC compressor has gone bad, and I've already got a replacement. I'm going to be going back with a used one with low miles, and I'm just going to show you what we have here. I've already got it up on ramps so we can get underneath and get to anything we need to. And so let's go ahead and just look at what we got here. Okay, so this compressor here has like 50,000 miles on it. I've got this from eBay. We've got a couple cans. It's going to take 20 ounces. So we're not going to use quite two 12-ounce cans. We're going to be putting some oil in here that's got UV dye. So we're going to be trying to get about 4 ounces. This is an 8 fluid ounce bottle. I've got less than 4, and then I've got a little more in this, and I'm going to try to get about 4 ounces back in this compressor. I don't know how much exactly got drained out. You know, it's pretty hard to tell, but we want to make sure we got oil. So the dye is going to be in this, and you can also get the dye in the cans, and just when you put the Freon in, you can do it that way. But you want to make sure that you do get some oil back into the system and in your compressor. So we're going to go ahead and just get started on the car here. Okay, as I was looking at it from underneath, it looks like the exhaust and CV axle is going to have to at the very least come out. So we're going to be kind of getting at it from the top here, and we're going to try to get it up through here. If we can't, then we're going to have to remove the this intake. We're going to try to see if we can't somehow get it up through here, but I know it's going to be an issue with the oil here. We may even have to feed the oil, I'm thinking, down through the lines or something, because the way that it's sitting in there, it's going to be going sideways. So we're just going to have to get to work. I think we're going to start on it from up here. So we don't, you want to make sure that you have your system sucked out and vacuumed if it does have any Freon in the system before you go to taking anything loose. So we're just going to get started at it from up here. Probably just going to remove this cover here. Looks like we got some tins. We're going to go ahead and remove this cover and get it out of the way at first, and we'll work on those lines. Okay, so we're just going to start working these out. I've got a couple more over here next. There we have that out of the way. We're going to go ahead and disconnect our negatives so we don't have any wiring mishaps. Okay, so I think I've decided what we're going to do is take the intake off. I don't want to really even disturb these lines if I don't have to. So we're going to take the intake off, and that way we'll have plenty of room over here. We don't have to take these loose, and we'll just disturb the lines that are on the pump there itself. So we're going to get to work on that, and before we go to removing that, of course, we'll have to get down here on the tensioner. That the way down there, you can see you could go in through the fender well. I think we could probably get in there with a little thin something and get down in there, but we'll see. We'll worry about that when we get there. Okay, the first thing I removed is just got this hose with a little clip loose from the valve cover there. This band, you can use a 10 or you can use a Phillips. I'm just loosening that up so we can get that off of the throttle housing there. I want to go ahead and pop our clips that we have here, get all these loose. Right, so we should at this point be able to just wiggle this off. It may be stuck a little bit. So we'll go ahead and just work on wiggling that off there. Okay, so there we have that loose. Got a connector going to this throttle housing for the IAC, I believe. You either push down there or go underneath with a pick tool and pull that down, and that'll just pop right off there. So we need to get on these cables. This here we just pull forward or pull to the what would be the right. Now it can take a little doing. Okay, and I got that off there. I just push down once I had this loose. This just pops up and out of here. So have a rubber grommet there. This one here, you can pop it up and out of there, or they never want to just come right out, but it's supposed to pop out of there. So you just spin this around like so and just slide that out. So now we have our cruise control and our throttle out of the way. We'll just put them back over here. Let's put that back on so we're not losing that. Okay, another hose. Take the clip loose, pop it off right there. So we've got a few more wire connectors here in the back that we just need to get these loose, and they're stubborn. Sometimes you got to use the pick tools because it doesn't want to release. You can see how I'm pushing on that, but it's not releasing. So you got to get under it and actually pull that up with a pick tool and then pull back on it. But we just got those two wires clipping in there. Looks like we've got a wire that's clipping to the side of that there. We need to get that unhooked. And of course we'll have to get our injectors disconnected. So we got another little wire harness right there. Each of these injectors needs to be disconnected. And then once we get that, we'll get to work on the bolts. And once we get this this intake out of the way, it'll be very easily able to get that out of there. So easy to get in there. Okay, I got the two wires over here loose on the back. I'm probably just going to take the bracket. I took this bracket off here. Probably just going to remove this 10mm. It'll be less confusing about where it goes, and then I won't break the little plastic clip there. Okay, we got this big wire connector here, and I'm going to get down here and work on these fuel injectors. I'm going to probably take a screwdriver and push in right there. And I don't see any safety locks, so I'm not going to really worry about that. Now we probably will have to remove the clips on this wire too before we can get it out of here. It looks like it loops around. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and get the injectors next here. Okay, these injector clips are the same way, and they were weak. What I was having to do is go down here with a little hook pick tool and kind of grabbing that part right there that you can see and pulling that back. We're just kind of grabbing in behind. I was coming from underneath, grabbing in behind that part that has a little square and pulling that out to get it to pop up and off of there. Okay, I just realized it's unnecessary to disconnect these injectors because it disconnects here at this big one. And this over here just has one connection coming up right here to this vacuum chamber, so you could just disconnect that there. You didn't have to disconnect them from the individual injectors like I did, so just disregard that. Okay, I've removed this next connector right here. Just squeeze down. That actually came loose. I'm going to go ahead and remove this bracket right here. It has that wire that's going down in behind there. Just want that bracket out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and remove that 10mm bracket. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get back here and start getting to these. These are 12mm that are going to be attaching this intake. So we're just going to get back here and we're going to get to these the best way that we can. And we've got several all through there. We're going to get to them the best that we can, just reaching back through here with various extensions until we can get this intake loose here. I don't know if I was showing you, there's a couple vacuum hoses here and here, and this in here doesn't even have to come off this connector. Okay, luckily these come off, these 12mm nuts come off really easy, and the bolts come out really easy once they're just broke loose. Went ahead and took this up because it made it easier for me to reach down and get this top one right down here. I was reaching down to finish it, getting with my fingers. I've got one more, so I've got those and those, and there's a short bolt, and I've got one more that's hiding right in underneath this. I'm going to come in from back there with a little swivel, a 3/8 swivel, and I'm going to kind of come at it at an angle and get it there. So most of these wires just stay. The this one right here is actually attached to this, so it would have had to been removed in order to pull this up, but everything else could have stayed clipped. But regardless, I've got to get this last little bolt out, and hopefully this will be ready to come out here. It's going to clear up a lot of room. I can tell you we'll actually be able to do something, and hopefully we'll be able to get it in here by some means. And since these AC hoses are flexible, what I'm hoping is we can get the oil in it and get the lines attached without having it into place. So that will make it a little bit easier. Now, if I can't really do that, I'm just going to simply pour my oil right down this tube right here. And I may just do that anyways, because I can just as easily, in this big tube right here, we can pour our oil down that. I like to usually get it right in the compressor, but if we can't, we'll pour it down that tube and it'll get circulated into the system regardless. Okay, we've got the intake loose. I want to show you there's one more bolt under here. I'm going to take it from the top. I just want to show you, if you come up where the CV axle is, you look, you see this tubed bracket. We've got a bolt right there. I think it's a 13mm. I need to get that loose. It runs down here to the bottom. You see it braces right there too. I'm just going to take it loose at the top there is all I'm going to do. So I've got all the other bolts, and we just got to get that bolt out right there, and this will be loose. Okay, this is in fact a 14mm bolt, but it is loose now. So we're going to try to wiggle this up and out of here. I do have some of these coolant warmer hoses that you can see run into the throttle housing. I really don't want to take those loose, so I was hoping that I could pull it over here, so I'm going to attempt to do that. If I can't, I'm going to go ahead and just pull the whole thing up and out and disconnect those and try to plug them off with something as best I can. So it's really looking like that's not going to work. We also have a fuel return line right here that I need to unfasten these tins. So I'm just going to mess with it a second and see what I can do with it. Okay, I've had another change of plans. I can't get the slack I needed. What we're going to do is we're just going to remove this throttle housing itself. And you can see we've got 4 bolts holding it on. We're just going to remove the throttle housing, and we can easily pull it over here out of the way, and then we don't have to disconnect our line. So we're going to get a 12 millimeter. Go ahead and take all 4 of those loose. Okay, the throttle housing is off. You do have to disconnect this wire down here because it wraps around the back of those hoses. But now we don't have anything holding it. Okay, that is actually the fuel line. I did have to disconnect that fuel line there. So we should have it loose. Okay, there was one more bolt on that bracket. There's a bracket, and there was a 14 on the back of this, but there's a 14 down below on the engine that I had to take loose. I didn't have to take it out. I had to take it loose to allow me slack, because the bracket wasn't letting me push this back. So now we should be able to wiggle it around and work it up and out of here if we don't have anything else attached anywhere, because there's a lot of things on here. So we've got it most of the way out. It looks like I still got something over here. Okay, it looks like we've got a wire that is attached still. I'm gonna have to deal with that. Okay, again, there's one more connector down there. This one right here. But I had to use the pick tool because it didn't want to release from that clip. So I got that one, and now see, there it is. It's just these things get weak or whatever, they don't want to release. So here is the whole intake up and out of here finally, and that sure clears up a very big hole. As you can see. Okay, just to show you now, we can get in here and do whatever we need to do. We got all kinds of room. So we got a clip down there we need to get out of the way. Very easy to get to the starter now. So I'm going to go ahead and get over here at this point and get this belt tensioner, if I can get it from, may have to get it from underneath, I don't know. But I'm going to get on that next and get the tension loosened off and see about getting this here belt off of the, it's the inner, actually the inner belt, the inner of the 2 belts that I need to pop off of here. Okay, as far as this tensioner goes, it's very simple. You just get on this 12 millimeter right here and just turn that counterclockwise, just like you would any other bolt, and loosen that off and just pop that belt right off there. So we've got that loose, and we're going to go ahead and go back up top. So it's really easy to remove that, just loosen it. And to put it back on, you just tighten it back up until you get your belt good and tight and it doesn't have a whole lot of flex to it. Okay, next thing I'm going to go ahead and just move this connector. I'm going to pinch this little tab together so I can remove this connector here and get it out of the way. Okay, the first thing I've done is took the bottom 2 out. If you can see where those go, they were really tight, probably a lot of rust but these don't need to be more than 25, 30 foot-pounds, you know. You want to put some Loctite so they're not coming loose. We're going to go ahead and get these 12 millimeters for the lines before we take the top bolts out and get our lines loose. And we'll pop these back out of the way, and then we'll go ahead and finish taking these top two out of here. But very easy. Once the intake's out of the way, it's very easy. Now someone might say, well, you could probably take it through the bottom. Well, you're just trading one work for another. You know, you could do that, but you're still going to have to take other things apart. You're going to take your exhaust, you're going to take your CV axle, and then you got more rusty bolts and stuff to deal with. So it's just, you know, ever how you want to do it. But to me, I like to work from the top when possible, because it just seems to make things a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and get these lines off here next. I've got them loose, and then we're going to go ahead and get the top two bolts out. Okay, I don't know if yours will be like these. I had to take the plastic into this, and essentially I hit the line in here, knocking it off. They were really stuck. There's like a pin. It's probably corroded. You can see that pin. O-rings actually look pretty good, surprisingly. These lines could have been replaced, I don't know, but the pins were really seizing up in here. So anyway, we got that. We're going to go ahead and just finish taking these 12s out here, and we'll be able to just get this off here real easily. But those lines were seized, so yours may be the same way. I don't know. Probably some of the worst ones that I've seen as far as them being seized up on there like that. I'm not sure what's going on there. But I mean, as you can see with the intake out, you've got like all kinds of room. It's very easy to get in here. The tensioner is easy to get to. Like no problem. See, the longer bolt goes on this top here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my hand on this and get this last bolt out. We're going to get it out of here. Alright, so we're just bringing it up and out of here now. You know, this thing wasn't locked up, but it wasn't compressing anything either. Okay, so I'm going to take all of this oil with dye, and we've got probably about 3.5 or so ounces. We're going to pour this in. And we'll see if we can't get a little bit more if we rotate this. So my plan is that we're going to hold it upright, and while doing so, I'm going to attach these lines here. But you want to make sure you got your oil. Don't want to start off with the system that's not oiled. You don't really know how much you lost when you opened it up, or sometimes if you get new ones, they'll send the compressors with oil, but you got to make sure. I want to take that chance. So this has got the dye, and so we don't know if we got any leaks in the system. It was working until the pump went out, so don't know, but the dye will locate the leaks if there is. So like I said, you can add the Freon with dye if you choose, or you can do it this way, just ever how you want to do it. But we want to make sure that our O-rings are oiled, so make sure this is clean, make sure that there's plenty of oil. We slip our O-rings in, and we need to get see that pin's on that other line, so it'll be fine. So we're going to hold it upright. We're going to try to slip the lines on, and we're going to go from there. So we're going to have it setting. So we have to be real careful. It'll just go to dumping oil out. We're going to make sure it's setting up. So it's going to go in kind of this way. Get our line slipped on with it upright, and then we can turn it whichever way we need to. It ain't going to make no difference. And so then we can work on getting it all back together and going from there. And this is looks like the exact same AC compressor as the original there. Here we are side by side. Here's our replacement. And you really, I mean, as far as looks, you can't tell nothing by looking at it. They both look about the same, except one works and one does. We got to get everything back together, and then we got to get our 2 cans, or not 2 cans, but about a can, and you know, we'll just kind of, I'm not going to measure it out. I'm just going to kind of go by feel when I do it. But we got to get 20 ounces in here regardless, which is going to be 4 ounces shy of a full can. So you figure, you know, there'll be about a third roughly of this can left when we have it charged. Now you just want to make sure to get the proper amount. If you overcharge it, you're going to have the same thing as an undercharge. Okay, I've just laid it up here and got my lines slipped into place and tightened up. So now I don't have to worry about losing any of my oil. We're going to go ahead and slip it back down in here into place. Okay, we snugged those 12 millimeters down, top and bottom. I put a little dab of medium Loctite on there. If you're going to torque them, I wouldn't go more than like 25-30 foot-pounds, but I just snugged mine down. So we're going to go ahead, and while we've got it here, we're going to slip our belt back on the tensioner and get that all hooked up. And then nothing left to do but work on putting this intake back in, and the fun job of hooking all that up, and then we still got to get it charged up with Freon and make sure everything's going to work here. Okay, we're just getting ready to set this intake back in here. This is going to be your least favorite part of this, but you know, you see you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of these bolts and nuts that go around here. And don't forget right off the bat, this is the connector I forgot. Go ahead and plug this in right back down in here. You see that plug in. Plug that in first so you don't forget that. And see, we've also got this connector down here it gets plugged into, so don't forget that. So I'm just going to work on the tedious job of getting the intake back in here now, and we're going to work on getting all the bolts in first, and then we'll work on the wires. And of course we got our throttle housing sitting over here with those coolant lines attached to it, and just a matter of getting it back together. So the gasket looks good, so that's a good deal on that. So I'm going to be working on that now. Okay, so we got this bolted back down, just using a lot of different types of extensions and ratchets and everything, so it's not pleasant. We went ahead, we got the little bracket back right here for this wire connector. This is our harness. We're going to start working these back down in here. we're going to go ahead and get over here on this throttle housing, start plugging some of these vacuum tubes back in. And this goes here, and we'll get our needle nose, and we'll now this goes on the outside of the throttle housing here. We'll just kind of push it out of the way while we get that up into place. But we've got the worst of it here at this point, so we just got to get this and get this part back to there. So just like that. So now we're going to go ahead and lock that down. We'll get our clamps back on our hoses. We got that big brace, can't forget about. We got this reconnected to this vacuum purge solenoid or whatever, and we're going to work on getting everything else back into place here as well. Said this just sets down just like so. Gets those clamps, and then the last remaining fuel injector snaps on right there. This is going to go down in here. And I'm going to reconnect to our get all that back down in there that we had pulled out of the way. And we'll get our various brackets. So it's not like real simple once we got the intake on. So it's just a matter of just reconnecting a few things, putting a few clamps back on, and we're in business. It's actually more difficult to take the little clips and stuff off than it is to go to snapping everything back. So we're going to work on locking down this stuff, and then we'll get on those other connections, and hopefully we'll get this vacuumed out here fairly soon, and we can work on getting some Freon back in here and see what's going to happen. Okay, I've just slipped that back on to there, and then slipped the throttle cable back into that pig. Nothing to that. Put those back down on their rubber grommets. Got our throttle housing in place. We just need to get our connections for the compressor and the brackets put back to where they go and run. We've got these that run. Okay, I've got some in the wrong spot here. These are actually going up to the top. These are the ones going to the top of this right here. So we need to move those around. So you can feel free to label any of this stuff you want it. Sometimes it makes it go a little quicker. There's less confusion when going back together. So we got that snapped on there. That's just going to go back in there. And then this just has the clamp. We'll get that bolt right in there. Okay, I just connected another bracket right there. I'm just getting ready to make my final connection of this connector. It's going right here on the top of that AC. And so we'll just do a check over to make sure that we didn't miss anything, and we'll go ahead and get our intake air box up here. Now I do have to get these. I never did get these clamps back down on here. I need to do that. Okay, I just got the air box reclipped, and going to tighten that band. We got this reattached down here to the valve cover, and we're just about ready. We're going to go ahead and get the vacuum pump hooked up at this point, and we're going to have to pull a vacuum on here for a little bit and make sure that we don't have any leaks, that we are holding vacuum. And then we want to vacuum it out for about 30 minutes to an hour real good, so we can hopefully get this thing charged up and get it back to working and get some AC in this again. Okay, I've got my gauges out. I'm fixing to hook one of them up to the low over here, and then we'll get our high hooked up, and we're going to get this vacuum. Okay, so here's the low port back here, like kind of where these throttle cables are running and your ABS. Make sure this is turned counterclockwise and it's open. And then when you get it on here, you can turn it clockwise and press on the Schrader. And now it's opened up. Now we got to get our high connected right here by this motor mount. Make sure it clips on there good, and turn it to open it up. Right now these are closed, or well, they should have been closed. This is going to hook to our pump. We'll keep these closed until we get our pump hooked up and ready to go here. You're going to need a can tap. You can get one specifically for the self-piercing, or you can just use an ordinary one there. Just make sure that it's all counterclockwise. You can put it on it first. Okay, so here's the pump. Like I said, you can get the gauges and the pump. You can get a loaner tool from AutoZone, or at least they did have, where you can get all this. You put a deposit down on your credit. So we're going to go ahead and connect to this, and then we'll go ahead and kick the pump. Now you want to make sure on these that they have oil, this little sight window. Okay, now you'll hear the difference as we open this up. It's going to start pulling the vacuum. You notice the smoke. It's getting that moisture out of the system. So we're going to let this run for a minute, and then I'm going to close it and turn it off and just see if it's going to hold vacuum at all. And you know, if it's not going to hold vacuum, there's no point in doing any more. We need to find out where a leak is. And you know, the only thing I disturbed was the pump line, so I'd probably start there, and then we just continue on from there, replacing as we need it till we get the leak stopped. But hopefully we're not going to have that. Okay, now usually you want to let this set for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever, to make sure that it's not going to move. Usually you'll know it. If you got a leak, it'll start moving fairly quick. But you know, you can let it set for 30 minutes, ever how long you want, just to confirm that it's not going to be leaking. And I've been watching this for a little bit. I haven't seen the needle move. I think that it's pretty good. We're going to go ahead and just continue vacuuming for about 30 minutes and get all the moisture and get a good vacuum. So we got both sides opened up, so we're pulling a good vacuum on this. Okay, I'm about to shut the pump off. We're going to go ahead and close our gauges off here on both sides. Just make sure these are shut. Go ahead and kick the pump off. And you want to have one of these gauges for your inside vent. You start putting the Freon in. We're going to go ahead and I got the tap on here. It is not screwed down or pierced as of yet. I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to the can here. Give me just a second. Okay, now we're only going to open up this side, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and pierce the can and just crack it back open just a little bit, not even a quarter of a turn. And before I do that, I'm going to get me some gloves on here. Okay, now we're only going to open up this side here. We're going to go ahead and get as much as we can into the system before we crank it up here. You can see it going through there. It's not uncommon to get, you know, most of a can in here even without it running. It's kind of slowing down. It looks like we still got about a half can though. But we know it's going to take another 8 ounces. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more of this can in here. Okay, you want to make sure to check your sticker here. So this was 1.16 pounds, so you convert that to ounces. So that actually comes out to less than 20. Okay, so instead of 20 ounces like I was thinking, it's actually going to be 18.56, I believe, on the ounces. So we'll want to make sure that we don't little over 18 ounces on this. Now you can get cans that actually have you know, closer to 20 ounce or 18 ounce. They have different if you want to make sure that it's exact, because I'm just kind of going by feel and experience on this. But we know we're going to have 12 ounces when we get this can completed, and we only need roughly another half of a can. Okay, so I did get the battery reconnected, so we're going to go ahead and kick it on because it's not wanting to get all this can here. So I'm going to go ahead and see what it's going to do now that I've got the compressor turned. I should be able to get the rest of this can in here. Okay, so we can look down here and see the face on that compressor is spinning, and the pressure is going down. It's starting to suck the rest out of the can, and this can will kind of go frosty and then it'll get warm, and you'll know that you've got it all emptied out. Okay, we got the first can in there. I realized I didn't even have my high connector connected properly. I'm going to go ahead and shut off this side here. Now, one of the steps that I skipped, when you hook up your first can, you need to purge this. I skipped that. So make sure you purge that, get the air out of the line. I'm going to do that on the next one. Okay, and I did purge the line. Now, I did that the first time, but I just skipped showing it. I just wanted to mention that, but just briefly hit that till you get the air out of the line. So I've got this open. Remember, we're only going to put about half of this can in here, and we're going to stop. So we're just going to slowly start adding it. We don't want to get more than the 18.5 ounces in here. So I'm just going to kind of try to go by feel here and just shut it off when I think it's about good. And I'm also fixing to go start monitoring the inside and see how that's doing. Okay, well, I got my can and a half in. I'm going to go ahead and put my caps back on here. And it is, it was cooling down like it should. So we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up and get everything put up. And the compressor is working and doing everything that it's supposed to be. Okay, just to show you where it's cooling to, it was a little bit lower than that, and I would suspect that as it gets to running down the road, it'll get cooler, but it's right above the green, which is right in about the 40-degree area. So the only thing to do is just keep an eye on it for leaks. If there is a leak, you know, the diode's going to show it, and of course it'll quit cooling as good. Okay, so we're just sitting here idling, and we're blowing about right the line above 40 degrees, which is pretty good. Said it'll probably do a little better going down the road, but just sitting here idling so far, it's doing really good. So anyways, got some cool air back in this car, and it's been really, summer's really been holding on. It's been hot and humid, so it's not a good time to not have AC. So anyways, that's going to conclude this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. As always, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you for watching.